They say that God gives his toughest battles to his toughest soldiers or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, as you can probably tell by my voice, I have a very serious cold. I have a headache. I have a fever, 100-degree fever, not to brag. But I'm still pushing through and giving you content because that's what you guys deserve. However, because I do really feel like poop, this video is not going to be as long as my regular preview videos will be. I'll just get right to the point for each game. And I'm not saying that I'm a hero for making this video while fighting an extremely serious cold and a super stuffy nose, but I kind of am. Anyways, the video begins right after this. Before I begin, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, DraftKings. With a long season of football ahead of us, jump in on all the action playing daily fantasy at my partners, DraftKings. New customers download the DraftKings app and use code BARRY for a free shot at a share of millions in prizes with your first $5 deposit. That's code BARRY only at DraftKings. The crown is yours. With that first deposit of $5, new customers can play for a share of millions in total prizes. All you have to do to play is just draft your roster, and those players earn points based on their in-game performance. You can check out all that DraftKings has to offer via the app or the website. So, what are you waiting for? Download the DraftKings app right now. New customers, use my promo code BARRY and play free for a share of millions, yes, millions in total prizes with just a $5 deposit on the DraftKings app. That's promo code BARRY only at DraftKings. Without further ado, let's get back to the video. New Orleans versus Atlanta. Kirk Cousins versus a more athletic version of Kirk Cousins, aka two quarterbacks who are either the best, worst quarterbacks ever or the worst, good quarterbacks ever, and I really can't tell. This should be a pretty even matchup, but as I predicted last week, the Saints offense completely fell back down to earth against my Eagles, and I think that their first 2 weeks' performance was a bit of a fluke, so I expect them to struggle on offense again. However, I also feel like it's Kirk Cousins we're talking about, and every team that he plays for, with the exception of like 1 or 2, always ends up being a 500 or losing team. So I'm going to say the Saints win 20-16. Cincinnati versus Carolina. You might have heard by now, but the Bengals are 0-3 after being picked by many to be contenders in the AFC, while the Panthers finally broke through last week after benching Bryce Young. And while I do think Andy Dalton, hey, did you know he used to play for the Bengals, does make the Panthers a legitimate NFL team, I still believe that the Bengals have the better roster and they should win this game, but I think it will be close. Joe Burrow has actually played pretty well the last couple weeks, but the defense hasn't been there. But I think the Bengals will do just enough to squeak out this one, 27-21. LA Rams versus Chicago. I swear to God, it feels like the Bears are 0-3, but no, they're actually 1-2. I got that wrong in my last week's preview, but I'm not going to make the same mistake twice because I'm a super smart guy. The Rams, still without their top 2 receivers, upset the mighty 49ers last week, and I still think as long as Matthew Stafford is healthy that the Rams have a chance on any given day to beat anybody because Stafford has always been that type of talent. And although I still do believe in Caleb Williams, he is going through his rookie growing pains, and I think those will continue here, but I do expect it to be close. I think the Rams will win 23-17 after they stop Caleb Williams late in the game. Pittsburgh versus Indianapolis. Oh, shame on me. Haha, yeah, I know every week I pick against the Steelers, and every week they make me look dumb by somehow finding ways to win games in the ugliest way imaginable. So you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to lean into it. It's the Steelers. From now on, I'm going to pick them to win every single game, every week, and I'm starting now. And I'm going to pick the most ridiculous scores for them to win by that are so ridiculous, but yet at the same time somewhat realistic because they're the Steelers and they literally are famous for making games as dumb and uninteresting as possible. So I think that the Steelers will shut down Anthony Richardson and they'll win a real barn burner 3-0. Green Bay versus Minnesota. Much like the Steelers, so far this year, the Vikings have made me look like a dumbass. And I know that at the moment I pick the Vikings, which I have in this game, spoiler alert, they're going to lose and make me also continue to look like even more of a dumbass. Really, this depends all on whether Jordan Love is going to play or not, and they say that Jordan Love is questionable to play. And although Malik Willis surprisingly did well in his stead over the last 2 games, if Malik Willis has to play against the Brian Flores-led defense, then I think the Packers will be in serious trouble. Even Jordan Love coming off of an injury where he's not 100%, I still think the Vikings have the edge, 24-14. Now watch Darnold throw 3 interceptions. Houston versus Jacksonville. The Texans may be coming off of a surprise ass whooping at the hands of Minnesota last week, but I sure as hell trust them more than I do the Jaguars at this point. Doug Peterson seems to be a dead man walking, and it almost feels like the team has stopped playing for him, and I'm surprised he wasn't fired after losing by 37 points on Monday Night Football. You might have heard by now, but the Jaguars have lost 8 straight games with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, and I think that losing streak will continue to 9, and I think this is going to be Doug Peterson's last game in charge of the Jaguars. I think the Texans will win 31-21. New York Jets versus Denver. It still feels weird that the Jets have a quarterback advantage going into most of their games after literally decades of shit quarterback play, but that's the case here. And although Bo Nix and the Broncos did beat the crap out of the Buccaneers on the road last week, I still think that Bo Nix is nowhere close to as good as Aaron Rodgers is, and that to me would be the difference. I think the Jets are going to win this one comfortably, 28-13. Philadelphia versus Tampa. This is the third time in the last 12 months that the Eagles are playing against the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. Seems a little bit unfair to me. Regardless, the Eagles are a franchise that overcomes adversity and perseveres in spite of trouble, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. This Eagles team loves to shoot themselves in the dick, but they're still one drop away from being 3-0, and after Tampa Bay came back to earth last week against Denver, I think the Eagles are going to come away with the win here on the road, and I'm not just saying that because I'm an Eagles fan, but I think they're going to win 34-20, and all you haters can suck my wiener. Washington versus Arizona. Jaden Daniels hype is growing at a pretty quick rate now after his amazing performance on Monday Night Football versus the Bengals, and against a, let's just say, mediocre opponent like the Cardinals, I do expect him to continue to play well, and the Commanders' offense to play well, but I do think the Cardinals will put up a fight. I think Kyler Murray will find Marvin Harrison Jr. for a touchdown or two, but in the end, it won't be enough. I think the Commanders will end up winning 31-24. San Francisco versus New England. The 49ers' 1-2 start to the season has been one of the biggest surprises of the NFL season so far. Even though they were missing some key talent last week, it was still a surprise to see them lose to a Rams team that was also injured. I don't see them, even with their injuries, losing to the New England Patriots, especially since they continue to trot out Jacoby Brissett, whose ceiling is basically non-existent. At least with Drake May, he's probably going to make some bad plays. He's probably going to get sacked, but at least there's still the possibility of, hey, we don't know what his ceiling is. Let's just get him out there. I've gone into this before. I just think it's so stupid to just sit May on the bench so he can watch Jacoby Brissett throw for 100 yards a game. It's ridiculous, and I think the 49ers are going to win this one pretty easily, 35-17. Las Vegas versus Cleveland. The news just came out that Davante Adams is not going to play in this game. I don't know. It smells like a trade is cooking. Perhaps Davante Adams might play for the Jets at some point with his old friend Aaron Rodgers. Who knows? Either way, I think it's fair to say at this point that Deshaun Watson is never going to be what he was in Houston ever again. It's honestly stunning to see how terrible he is compared to how he was in Houston, even just ignoring all the off-field stuff. However, the Raiders are still trotting out pretty mediocre quarterbacks, Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, so this should be a competitive game. Myles Garrett's dealing with a bunch of injuries, and I think the Raiders will make just enough plays to come out with the W. I think they'll win 24-20. Kansas City versus the LA Chargers. I do kind of find it ironic that so many people and fan bases are now complaining and bitching about the Chiefs getting every call. But back a couple years ago in the Super Bowl, when the refs fucked my Eagles in the ass with no rubber and no lubricant with the fucking flag laid on James Bradbury, I was called a bitch and complainer, and I was called a pussy. But guess what? All these people are now saying the same shit about the Chiefs getting all the calls in the high leverage situations. Let's look at it. Justin Herbert is hurt. Joey Bosa is missing games, which is no surprise. He's one of the most fragile superstar defensive players ever. Travis Kelce still hasn't gotten going, but we all know that come playoff time, he'll end up catching 10 passes a game. The Chiefs treat the regular season like preseason at this point, and I think they're going to end up sleepwalking, and they'll do just enough to win 27-22 against their divisional rivals. Fun fact, the last Chiefs quarterback to win a game against the Chargers? That's right, Blaine Gabbert. Baltimore versus Buffalo. The Bills are 3-0, and they are undefeated in the regular season ever since that report came out that Sean McDermott compared overcoming adversity in football to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. The only loss the Bills have had in that span overall was to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs last year. My preseason MVP pick of Josh Allen looks pretty good right now, and the Ravens aren't as good as I thought they were going to be. They nearly blew their lead last week against the Cowboys, and I think the Bills will do enough to win this one. I think Allen will once again play well. It's Josh Allen's time to win MVP, and I think games like this are going to cement his spot as the MVP frontrunner and eventual winner. The Bills win 28-24. Tennessee versus Miami. If Miami still had Tua Tagovailoa playing quarterback, I might actually pick them because Will Levis is dog shit. But the Dolphins somehow have 2 or 3 quarterbacks that are worse than Will Levis. At least Levis is capable of making 1 or 2 plays every game that are good. Skylar Thompson sucks. Tim Boyle is atrocious, and Tyler Huntley is terrible. So really, I think the Titans are going to win this one pretty handily. Although my bigger question is, why does the NFL continue to have 2 Monday Night Football games so close within each other? Why not just put the first game at 5 and then the second one at 8? I mean, you're the fucking NFL. You're literally a monopoly. You're a billion-dollar company. You own all the TV shares and schedules, so just do that. Why are you making these 2 games so close with each other? We have to change channels and shit. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Titans win this one 28-9. And And finally, we have the Lions versus the Seahawks. The Lions had a pretty nondescript win last week against the Cardinals, and thus far the Lions haven't been quite as good offensively as they were last season, although we are again in kind of a bizarre world now. Much like where the Jets have the better quarterback every week, the Lions are actually expected to win most times. These are the types of games that'll show why Geno Smith, despite turning around his career and becoming a respectable quarterback, is still Geno Smith and not an elite quarterback. I think the Lions have a good thing going. Maybe they'll do another hook and ladder touchdown, who knows, but I think the Lions win this one 26-17. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't yet, please press that subscribe button and also close that porn tab. I know what you're doing, and I'm very disappointed in you.